cutting edge guests, awesome, uncensored, jaw-dropping information, plus funny memes, good deeds, and loads of laughter. Kind of have it all. Ladies and gentlemen, if your soul is awake, then welcome, because you're in the right place. Well, good day to you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Sovereign Soul Program, a show which stands for love, levity, and liberty, because after all, love is the most powerful form in the universe, and laughter's the best medicine, especially covering serious topics and all matters ancient, current, and quantum, right? I'm your host, Brad Wozni. We have an incredible show for you today. I am deeply honored by the guest you're about to meet here in a few moments. Literally, the show title we're working on is it the rise to becoming a tier 1 elite special operations warrior and the awakening of the spirit of the consciousness of that particular individual. This is a guest who has been there, has done that, and continues to do it on behalf of humanity. And we'll introduce him in a moment. Here's the thing. I trust some of the information in today's episode, or heck, all of it, could literally help generate powerful and positive impacts in both your life, those of your loved ones, and your community around you because of the lessons learned, as well as the heroic stories that you're about to hear. And you see, my soul's purpose is to help uplift humanity's consciousness with song and story. Therefore, in this show, by sharing these unique points of views, these truths, the laughter and the love with you, it's done so according to the laws of nature, the law of one, which aims to pierce the programming waged upon the global masses and help foster a greater world for us awakened lions and lionesses as we fight back against evil while humanity propels itself forward in this golden era that's upon us now, the age of Aquarius. So first of all, from me to all of you, a thank you from the bottom of my heart, from the depths of my soul. Thank you to the whistleblowers, the light workers, the digital warriors, the citizen soldiers, the benevolent healthcare heroes, the benevolent first responders and military, the benevolent Leos and educators, the benevolent, powerful parents and divine masculine protectors and divine feminine guardians for tuning in. Thank you, because your efforts to shepherd light forth in this world while fighting for the sovereignty of all souls here and now, it is not being for naught. So wherever you are watching this broadcast or hearing this podcast, and I've been fortunate to become a Reiki master several years ago, and as such, I'm sending you Reiki through to you, your soul and your spirit, sending you love and support to help you hold the line and help this world awaken. Keep it up, folks. Now, as a former Canadian infantry soldier trained as a peacekeeper, who also spent some summers hopping out of helicopters fighting wildfires in Ontario and the Yukon, I've had a continued calling to serve the greater good. It's in my blood. It's a core of my family and our family's lineage on both my mother and my father's side, who are each firstborn Canadians. It holds patriots who fled the Nazis in World War I and World War II, who immigrated to North America as refugees, and several of them on both sides, several of them soldiered up, put on a uniform, and went back to Europe to fight against evil in both world wars, in tanks, in bombers, as sailors, as nurses, as medical doctors on the beaches of Normandy to defeat fascism once and for all. Unfortunately, that same cancer crept back into the shadows and launched another attack on our world, as we've all known for the last 2.5 years. It's so apparent. And so therefore, by producing the Sovereign Soul Show, it is my hope the information in our episodes, including the one we're about to dive into now, will help you achieve a higher level of sovereign freedom and spiritual awareness and self-awareness in your life. It's like JFK said, the service of truth is the ultimate heroism. Hence, this is how I'm acting as a soldier here today. SOULDIER, a sovereign soldier, one who serves to uplift the world's vibration so we may all live from a place of love, levity, and liberty, which is the mantra of our show and the ethos of our mascot, the Blinged Buddha. He fires red pills from his 9mm. He's got his Punisher tattoo on one chest, and he's got the lotus flower and a dove sitting on his shoulder, as well as precious metals and a cryptocurrency token hanging from his neck with a smile. Boy, this next guest, Mark B, I'm not giving you his full last name yet on purpose, is, as I mentioned, a gentleman who has been there and done that. Whom you're about to hear from and see here directly, who is on the screen with us right now and joining us, is none other than a Tier 1 elite special forces operator hero from Britain, who's went on to continue to serve humanity. And we'll get into his backstory in a moment as bring him on. And he's currently working as a director of operations at Valhalla Capital in Houston, and just recently returned from a 3-month deployment in Sierra Leone to help set up a mining operation for this benevolent venture capital company. Mark, good sir, deeply honored to have you on the show today. You have such amazing, unique perspectives for the decades that you have spent both in the military and beyond the military in fighting for the sovereign freedoms of all humanity. Thank you. I'm deeply honored to have an elite warrior like yourself on this show. You are the first one to come on. Oh my goodness. Wow. I didn't sleep last night after we talked for 2 hours yesterday. I got to tell you, like Amy knows, you know,
right.
I was like, holy cow, this is truly amazing. So I'm deeply honored.
What an intro. Thanks, Brad. No, it's an absolute pleasure. I was the same last night, you know, after talking, and I didn't sleep much last night. I was just like, oh yeah, it just brings up the memories, and yeah, I'm like, oh, I need to mention that and go through a bit of that, and
well, we'll certainly get it. We'll certainly get it. You know, your call of duty. I'm really curious, right? At the age of 16, you went into the military. We'll define that for a moment. You spent a year in training, and you were the youngest at that time to have successfully passed the Special Forces selections course in the British military, which you mentioned at the time there was 200 military personnel from Army, Navy, and Air Force of all ranks and levels, from non-coms to commissioned officers, that entered that 6-month training. And at the age of 23, you passed it. You were one of 11 out of 200 who started to pass it. And at the age of 24, you joined an elite Tier 1 unit. Would you mind taking us through your upbringing in England and the fact that you are at least the 2nd generation to follow that path? Your father served in the British Army in the Airborne, and thank you for his service too. And Tony, good sir, if you are watching and listening to this, thank you as well for your service. And Mom as well for your spiritual.
Yeah, I'm blessed to have amazing parents. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was born into a Cambridge Military Hospital, so it was straight into the military way of life in Aldershot. Dad was in airborne forces at the time. You are very correct. So my granddad had also served in the Second World War. He was on the D-Day landings as well. He ended up getting shot in occupied France, getting flown back and all that side of things. But yeah, and then on my mum's side, her granddad, he'd served, you know, and her great granddad and her dad as well. So really, wow. Across the board, just a real military family, I guess. Mm-hmm. So as I say, I was born in the military hospital as well. Then I ended up sort of going around with Dad as he was getting posted into the various places. Started school in Germany. So I went into the sort of British Forces schooling system there, which is like primary school, and they were really good schools. Then unfortunately my mum and dad separated, and I think I was about sort of 7 or 8 at the time, and I ended up going back with mum to the northeast, to Newcastle, northeast of England. And you know, the area is it's very, I guess, you know, blue collar, and at the time it was like high unemployment. It's like a shipbuilding,
right,
coal mining sort of community. And I went into the schools there, which was a shock to the system, a pretty big shock to the system. Then, you know, a number of years go by. I'm getting to sort of leaving school age.
Yeah.
You know, the area at the time was a bit rough and ready. If I can try and describe it, you know, it's a fertile recruiting ground for the military, because there wasn't much employment at the time. So I think my dad had sort of, he could see that I was maybe getting involved in the wrong crowd and stuff like that. I was a bit of a tearaway at the time, bit of a rebel as well, which sort of stayed with me. You know, I'm a bit of a rebel against the system in some ways. So lots more to talk about on that side of things as well. So my dad could sort of, and he stayed in my life, you know, as I was growing up as well, which I'm very grateful to him for that as well.
Excellent.
So he basically took me down to the Army Careers office and got me signed up, you know, probably at the time a little bit reluctantly.
Oh yeah.
So I then joined at 16 years old into Junior Leaders Regiment. You can't do that. You can't do that anymore. It's you know, you've got to be older. There's probably some legalities there with all of that. So I joined at 16, and then it was a year's worth of basic training at that time. And as I've already said, I was like sort of rebelling against the system, but I'd gone into one of the main systems that's, you know, it's gonna knock that out of you pretty sharpish.
Right.
So I you know, went through that, got through that. There's a couple of little misdemeanors on the way as well, but got through the basic training. And then I was posted to Germany. Sorry, just rewind a little bit there. So during the basic training, so I was 16 to 17 when that was happening. I then ended up, you know, on one of the leave periods going back to Newcastle.
Right.
We were in a pub and ended up getting into a fight. And it was actually my friend's dad he was getting beaten up in a restroom.
No kidding.
By these two guys, and ended up, you know, trying to break it up, but just, you know, it was a free for all in the restroom.
Right.
So I ended up with 2 plates in my jaw during that time.
Oh.
So and then going back from leave, you know, like with all that going on. So then I got posted to Germany, and during that time, the first Gulf War was just starting during that time. So this is like 89, 90, and 91. So I didn't go on that. I ended up not going on the first Gulf War, but I ended up going to Northern Ireland instead. So that I was 17 or 18 at the time, or, you know, that sort of age, and going to Northern Ireland, and you end up patrolling the streets. It's part of the UK, but you're in body armor. You've got a rifle. You've got a helmet on, and you're patrolling the streets. And there's a lot of animosity there, you know, against you. Go ahead, Brad.
Mark, for any of the younger those watching, they may not be up to speed on the history, especially if they're raised in North America or the States. on what was happening in Northern Ireland at the time, unless they watched that movie with Brad Pitt and Harrison Ford all that time ago. Would you mind just giving a little bit of clarity about the IRA, the UK, and the British military presence that you were part of before you getting grenades chucked over walls at you and your detachment?
Right. Yeah, so it was called Military Aid to the Civil Power, MACP, and basically the army, the police force couldn't control what was going on there at the time with the Troubles. It was called the Troubles. Basically, you had the Republican side was the IRA, and on the loyalist side, that's like the UVF and the UDA. You had several factions of terrorist groups going on in quite a small area, Northern Ireland, which is part of Ireland, but it's actually controlled by as part of the UK government. So yeah, the Republicans, the IRA side, they want a united Ireland. That is their aim, you know, to basically get rid of the British rule and take everything back as part of Ireland, the island of Ireland. So yeah, during the Troubles and that period of time, it was pretty busy. And as I say, the police couldn't contain the violence, so they called in the military, the army, to help. And then hence I find myself, you know, patrolling streets as a 17, 18-year-old.
Right in the thick of it.
And with a lot of animosity there, understandably now to me, but not maybe at the time to me, because you're there as a crown, you're serving the crown, you know, you're a soldier as part of the establishment, and you're on the streets, and we were going into people's houses and conducting searches, you know, they weren't always conducted very well, you know, that sort of thing was going on, and really all you're doing there is recruiting the next candidates to join the terrorist groups, because you got kids there that are seeing all this, and they're just like, yeah, I'm going to fight those when I get old enough.
Yeah.
And I've said this before, it's like, there by the grace of God go I, because if I'd grown up in that area, and you know, and I was on that side of the community, I probably would have done that. You know, I would have been fighting the British forces rather than the other way around. You know, it was, and these are similar areas. They're very high in unemployment and you know, blue collar sort of communities. So yeah, I ended up doing a 6 month tour in Londonderry at the time, and I was in a place called Rosemount. There's about 30 of us there, and yeah, they used to throw over fairly regularly, like grenades and coffee jar bombs. So they used to make these coffee jar bombs. It was basically a glass jar. They used to pack that with plastic explosives, detonator, and like a fridge door switch. So basically, when the when the glass shattered, it would trigger the explosion.
Wow!
So it was all homemade, a lot of homemade stuff, you know. And during that time as well, I mean, I remember being sat there in there's a big army barracks called Fort George. And I was sat in Fort George in the restroom, and it all of a sudden it was just like, I thought it was thunder at first, and it was, but it just carried on, and it was this huge explosion. And you know, you grab your helmet, get under the whatever's there, and just ride it out, because you don't know whether it's a mortar attack or whatever. So
wow, this
happened, and they basically drove a car bomb into the police station, which was a couple of miles away. Wow. And this is how big the bomb was.
Still felt the shockwave and the concussion.
Still felt all the shockwave,
and that was through residential area. in an urban setting.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
They must have had howitzer rounds or like 155 mic. I mean, that's massive. What I'm just
It was
curious.
it was a big bomb in the boot of a car
Okay.
that they just drove in there.
Damn.
And we're seeing all this being repeated now, in the Middle East and
Right.
all that. But it was going on back then. So so yeah, we were first on the scene there, and the whole street had been obliterated. And it was just surreal, just driving in there first on the scene. And at that time as well, there was a lot of evil stuff going on that the IRA were carrying out. So one of the other incidents that happened about a year previous to that was they basically kidnapped a family. This taxi driver kidnapped his family, and then chained him, padlocked him into his car with a bomb, and then said, basically, you need to drive this into the cross-border checkpoint at Bunkrana. So, or we'll kill your family. So, and this guy did it. And they detonated the car. And so I had a colleague that was there at the time. It killed several soldiers, and colleague that was there at the time, he ended up getting a load of skin grafts on his arm and stuff, but he survived. And they rebuilt the checkpoint, and I then ended up going to the checkpoint as well, and spent a few weeks up there as well. So it's just to give sort of context to what was going on at the time and how bad it was. And I was like, at the time I was just like, I want to fight this. I want to fight this that I was seeing as an evil thing. So also during that time, I was part of this operation. We were this quick reaction force, QRF, for an SF operation that was going on. And this guy came. He flew in this helicopter, and he was undercover. He had jeans on and long hair, and but a combat jacket, like a camouflage combat jacket, and this like strange rifle that I'd never seen, with these cool sights on it. And I was like, so, and he had this like little earpiece in his ear, and he had comms going, and he briefed us all on this operation. We were part of this operation, and I was like, I want to do that. So I'm like 17, 18. I'm like, I want to do this, what this guy's doing. So that really sparked my interest in the whole thing. And I at that time, I was like, in that age, you're bulletproof. You think nothing's gonna touch you.
Right.
So I then gets back, and then a few years go by.
And if I may add, Mark.
Yep.
In Toronto, in Canada, at that time, with the factions warring against each other and hiding behind civilians as targets. I mean, it was in our newspapers in Toronto. Every now and then it would be published. There would be an Irish car bomb in Ireland exploded. There would be a bar that would be blown up. And a pastor who was an inspector, which is the equivalent of a detective in North America for Canadian and American side, was an inspector, had to leave because there were so many death threats on his life. And he was a pastor at where we ended up going, my family at the time, the Catholic Church, up just northern Ontario. And then as a result of that, he would share, and some of the stories that he could to talk about the evil. So people obviously don't go there, but they're also enlightened to that effect as well. So it wasn't just regionalized. And for those who weren't around in the 90s or old enough in the 90s that made that newspaper type of thing, that news makes your ears, then it was for me, as I shared on Michael Jaco's show just a few days ago, for me, it was the compelling moment was looking at CBC and seeing Kosovo and seeing the genocide and the ethnic cleansing that had restarted there in 96. Kosovo Liberation Army with the same thing. They were going in and they were pulling the women and the mothers and the daughters out, and then they would rape them and gut them in front of the boys, the sons of those same mothers, folks, and the brothers of those same sisters that are being raped, tortured, and gutted, and then they slit the throats of the boys and would do stuff to then the men finally, and then that was part of their ethnic cleansing campaign. So we continue to see this happen every generation. And this is where we talk about love, levity, and liberty. When you have an awakened consciousness in the world and a higher vibration, it helps stop that evil as well. Everybody plays a part, whether it's through prayer, sharing this to wake up other people, this interview, and delving into Mark's story. So you've got a sense of that, so that doesn't happen again, right? Je me souviens. I remember that's on the license plates in Quebec. It's the motto of the 22e Regiment as well, or lest we forget Remembrance Day for the Canadian military and whatnot. So we've got the line is drawn now for us to stop that perpetration. And thank you for entertaining this backstory. So bring that to everybody's forefront here, Mark. Okay, wow. So a few years later, so you've went through this, and a few years later, what are you looking at doing now?
Yeah,
seen the guy who's jumped off. He kind of looks like he's a roadie. I've got this image of him. He's got the beard, the hair, the camo jacket. He's got a wicked ass rifle. He's got his comms. You guys don't have, you have your like 10-pound radio with the 20-foot whip, right?
Right.
Here. Yeah.
And he's just like running this whole operation himself. He's just like, he's got all these assets at his disposal, and we're like,
call me Bill, don't use any salutes, not your what? Yeah,
right.
The way I've been brought up, I like that guy. Okay, cool.
Right. So a few years go by. I did a tour in Bosnia as well. That was pretty busy as well. And we saw a bit there.
Reg Force tour, because you haven't got to the selection yet. So Reg Force tour in Bosnia Herzegovina. Okay. Gotcha.
Yep. So that was during that time. Then I get to 23 years old, and I'm like, now's the time. I'm ready. I'm sort of sick of the, I wouldn't say bored, but I'm just like, it sort of is bored. I'm sort of sick of the regimented Green Army. It's like the Green Army way, and it doesn't let you think outside of the box. It's just like, so I'm like, right, I'm ready to try this now. So, and I was pretty fit at the time, and so I started really training. I'd got a bit more information on what I needed to do, but it was very secretive on knowledge, and even on people that had been and tried and not got through. They were very tight-lipped, so it was difficult to get any sort of knowledge.
Yeah.
But then I found out later my dad had also he'd attempted it. He'd attempted the same selection years ago, and he didn't get through. He had an Achilles problem, which I've since had. I've since had a ripped Achilles as well. But so I ended up going on the course, and it's pretty brutal. The selection process is it takes you to your absolute physical and mental limits. It's meant to. That's the whole process.
Are there items from that course that you can share now, since it's at least out there from other people and accepted from that 6-month selection course for SAS, SBS, and the other units?
SRR. It wasn't called SRR at the time, but it was Special Duties Operator. That was the terminology, and it came under an operation name, Operation Ajax. Everyone has to volunteer first and foremost. If you want to get into the unit, you have to volunteer for the selection course. So everyone's a volunteer.
Hey everybody, it's Brad here. Our show will continue in a moment real quick. If it resonates with you, drop a like, follow us, and subscribe to the show. Hear from cutting edge guests who are experts in their field, have a lot of laughs, and discover some powerful tips on how you can thrive through 2025 in this amazing golden era of humanity. So give us a like, drop a comment, follow us right now as we fight back on the war being waged on humanity right now. And by the way, if you feel so inclined, please do share this with 9 friends, family, and colleagues as well. I'm deeply honored you're listening to this. Thank you for doing so right now, for those many of you who have taken that step. And here we go, back to our show.
It's tri-service, so it's Army, Navy, Air Force, and it's all ranks. So officers, and at the time I was a corporal, going on it. Everyone goes through the same thing. The only difference is the officers have what's called Officers Week. So out of the 6 months, they have 1 week of Officers Week, where they get put through officer stuff, and coming up with plans and briefings and that type of thing. But apart from that, everything's the same, and it's I mean, the learning curve sort of doubles back on itself. It was a steep old learning curve, and I learned so much about myself going through the whole thing. When you think you're done, you are absolutely not done. You're not even close to being done. You work out your limits. You work out that you don't need that much sleep to function. When you think that you're absolutely on your chin strap after you've done like 25 miles or whatever with some weight, you're not. You can carry on going. So all of these things were sort of multiple times as well. You go through these the limits, and you go past your limits. So just for instance, you start off with something called Camp 1. It's called Camp 1. That's the real physical side of the selection. Okay. You can leave at any point. So because everyone's a volunteer, you just go, I voluntarily withdraw. Right. So it's called VW, IVW. Okay. And that's you're off, with it. I mean, this thing's the course basically starts the selection, and I'd say within 10 minutes, there were 2 people had already been like,
no kidding,
IVW, because it's just full on, from the get-go.
And these are already regular military serving on all 3 branches, and they would have to apply to get in. And you mentioned 200 people in your course, and 11. You're one of 11 that graduated.
Yeah, 6 months later.
Wow.
So it was so Camp 1 used to run. That was about 3 weeks of the physical side of things. Right. You end up and you don't know what's coming up next. You don't know anything about the itinerary. But just to give an idea, I mean, everyone used to get the next detail in the canteen. So it was like this whiteboard in the canteen would be like with the timings. So you'd go in there and it would be like the next timings, and like you'd form up outside, and there are no names either. Everyone is just a number at that point. So nobody knows who each other is, and that's the way they kept it.
Cool.
So I remember they put us through this like river crossing, and then they brought us back, and then they basically this is like a military drill thing. They sized everyone off, so everyone was like a similar size to. Okay. So I was faced with this guy that was a similar size to me, that was opposite me, and I was like, what's going on here? Then they took us into the canteen, like big room, and then they opened up these like massive doors, and there was a boxing ring set up in the just behind the doors, and there was a big audience behind it, which was all the people from the regiment and 22 SAS as well. They're all in the audience. So and then we were into the milling, which was like basically you have a head guard on, and you fight the other guy, right? So and we're all taking it in turns, and I'm coming up with this like quick game plan. And my game plan consisted of, when they ring the bell, I'm going to sprint across there and land him with his punch as hard as I possibly can.
Right.
So that was
that.
it. No more than that, you know. And then I'm just going to carry on swinging. So I did that. The bell went. I ran across, and I basically broke his nose. This poor guy. So there's blood everywhere. And then I'm thinking, you need to hit me because I don't want to fight again, you know. So trying to get him to hit me. So then you end up from that, and this, you know, that was whatever it was, a couple of hours to, you know, getting everyone through. And we then got another run and another river crossing, and then we all got put into like an OP, which is like an observation post, which was like this big prickly gorse bush. So I am then in this OP with the guy I've been fighting. And then you've got to watch this road, you know, and report on everything on the road, and you've got this radio set. So you have to work with the other guy that you've just been, you know, knocking the shit out of, and you've got to work together. And we're all wet, you know, and cold and tired, and so we hadn't had much sleep at that point. So it got to about 5 o'clock in the morning, and one of the directing staff came past, and he was like 108. I was like, yeah, that was my number on the course. And he's like, follow me. So I was like, follow this guy. He's like, he took me to this, it was like an old bunker. And I can still see it now. He's like, it says, there's a tea urn and sandwiches at the end of the corridor there.
Teasing
you. Go and get the tea and the sandwiches. So British. So I was like, okay, you know, it was dark, and it was like this sort of dimly lit corridor. So I starts walking down this corridor, and then, you know, there's about 4 people on me as I'm walking down,
just laying the boots to
my
you.
head. I'm like zip tied up, and then I'm into the first of a few resistance to interrogation phases, you know. So then that goes on. You're in this R2I phase, and at the end of that, you know, it's like you have a debrief, and then you do get some rest after that, you know. So the numbers were substantially reduced from the end of that, and that was the end of Camp 1. And then you go on to the learning stuff, which is Camp 2, and that was, you know, surveillance, close quarter battle, and close target recce. So you go through all that side of things. I was actually watching the terminal list. I don't know whether you've seen that.
Oh, Brian. Yeah, we binged that on a Saturday. I haven't binged anything for a long time. Yes,
right. I thought the same as well. I thought it was very accurate. So they were actually doing a lot of the stuff that you learn on that course. It's same techniques, you know. So we were then at that time learning all that stuff, and there's a high attrition rate with that as well. So if you don't keep up with that learning curve, you're just off the course, you know. So you I get through that, and it was strange. I sort of I just knew I was going to get through. I don't know what it was. It was there's a few points I obviously was questioning, but I somehow knew I was going to get through. So 1 of 11 at the end of that, and then you go on to a 6-month probation phase as well. So I join the unit, and I mean, hair was pretty long at that stage, and you then go out and learn the whole area. And I was in Northern Ireland, back to Northern Ireland.
Wow.
And I was then doing the job that I'd seen those years ago and I was in the same exact area doing the job that I wanted to do. So it was pretty amazing. I loved all of that work. You know, there was I've got lots of memories from that, and you basically get to see you get to see the whole operation all the way from the start, and you're the one that's building this thing up. A lot of the time you're working by yourself as well, and these areas are no-go areas. You know, the police don't even go into these areas, and you're there by yourself, sort of.
Wow.
Working them. They gave me you get an ops car when you first go there, and I was 24 at that point. Then they gave me this car, because I was the youngest guy in the unit at that point. They gave me this hot hatchback, which was like a boy racer car, you know. So it was like this Ford XR2 at the time, which is a pretty fast car. And what they do is it's an undercover role. They put steel plates in the door, so it's a soft skin vehicle, but they put steel plates in the doors and steel plates in the back of the seats.
Mm-hmm.
I had a pistol on me, you know, at all times. I had body comms on me, covert body comms with a little earpiece. I had a door pistol. I had an H&K MP5 in a plastic carrier bag in the door well.
Wow.
Of the passenger side, all good to go. And then in the boot, I've got a G3, and then I had a shotgun. You know, so if we had any snatched operator, we would then go in, and it would be like a building assault. You know, so you have to go through all of that training as well. In the car as well, you have relocation equipment. So this is all leading into sort of technical surveillance and that side of things. So you can relocate not only, you know, bombs and weapons, but you can relocate other operators as well. We all carried location tracking devices. So I'm 24 and like thinking this is like the best thing ever. And it was an amazing time. As I say, you know, we were trained in all of that. We could covertly go into buildings and do all that sort of things. And so both urban and rural, and they used to, you know, the terrorist groupings used to hide things in both, you know, buildings and properties, and also dig them into, you know, fields, farmers' fields, and that side of things. So it was all we were involved in exploiting stuff like that, and which would then lead to arrests, and then we would be on the arrests as well. So it was pretty good. So what I ended up, I guess what I'm leading to is what I ended up realizing is that you quickly work out that the information you get, and you're very privileged to a lot of information and intelligence, and you start realizing that there's a whole other world here that's going on behind the scenes, you know, behind the Wizard of Oz curtain. And that was all pretty awakening for me. So that was, I guess, the first time I'd sort of started seeing things differently. So I did that for a number of years, and I was also an instructor. Go ahead, Brad.
As a point of clarification on that, as we move ahead, SRR is a unit that not many people are familiar with. And you've mentioned, you haven't done it here, but you guys are running Black Ops, but you touched on the point that you're going after those for arrest. Can we we're talking about war crimes, and we're talking about the terrorists. Is that Ireland? Just give us a little bit of a sense of that, what you guys are doing at that particular point in time in those no-go zones. And if you don't mind, share a little bit more light onto the SRR unit, which very few people know about. if you don't mind.
So it's the newest unit within the SF, within UK SF. 3 units: SAS, everyone's heard of SAS, SBS, Special Boat Service, and SRR now, which is Special Reconnaissance Regiment. So that was formally formed in 2005, around the time I was actually leaving. So but this had all been, it was actually first started in 73. Coincidentally, that's my birth year. So
oh wow,
it was so that's when it first started, but then it was formally recognized in 2005. Initially it was Northern Ireland centric, and it's a covert unit dealing with counterterrorism operations. It's progressed a lot in that time, and so now they're very active. They have been very active in the Middle East with everything.
Gotcha.
The wars that have been going on there, and fighting ISIS, and doing similar things. But all of these techniques and tactics were all formed in Northern Ireland. So that's really the background with it. And I was like I say, I'm very proud to do that work. And at the time, I thought it was fighting the fight, fighting the evil forces, and doing that side of things. I maybe look at it a little bit differently now. So but as I say, that was part of starting to wake up with everything going on. The next stage really of me waking up is my stepmom, beautiful woman. She got pancreatic cancer. I was actually out in Pakistan at the time. I lived out in Pakistan for a couple of years. So another little side story with that is I ended up getting an old VW van from Peshawar, and brought that back to the UK. And
we can show that picture right now if you'd like, the 3-hole.
Yeah.
A little bit later on. All right, we'll bring that up. Just give some essence to that story here. And well, here we go. Here's the 3-holer. Let's do this. Share. I've got. Is this the listing from where you found it, Mark?
It is, yeah. So it says there
Craigslist in Pakistan, huh?
It's Pakistan, yeah. They've been using it. The front there is not original. They put a diesel engine in, and so hence the original engine is air cooled, but with the diesel engine they had to cut in a radiator and stuff and do all that, and they were using it as a taxi.
Okay.
But the van first went there. I've got all the old records now. It first went there as a UNICEF. It was part of the UNICEF operation as an ambulance.
Gotcha.
So it went to the Middle East in 79 as an ambulance.
Gotcha.
Kitted out with the blue light and everything and all that. So I ended up getting that from Peshawar. It's on the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan, and or in that region. Took it back, and then had a big project when I was there of basically getting all that put back to original, and I got it sprayed out there as well, and all the body
bullet holes for a little bit of sentimental value. Hey everybody, it's Brad here. Our show will continue in a moment. Real quick, if it resonates with you, drop a like, follow us, and subscribe to the show. Hear from cutting edge guests who are experts in their field, have a lot of laughs, and discover some powerful tips on how you can thrive through 2025 in this amazing golden era of humanity. So give us a like, drop a comment, follow us right now as we fight back on the war being waged on humanity right now. And by the way, if you feel so inclined, please do share this with 9 friends, family, and colleagues as well. I'm deeply honored you're listening to this. Thank you for doing so right now. For those many of you who have taken that step. And here we go. Back to our show. Sentimental value.
I cut out the 3 bullet holes in her, refer to her as her. So
Yeah.
the two in the sides, and these are all going through as well. So
Right.
I don't know whether it caught anybody inside at the time, but there was one in coming in through the roof and then going out through the floor pan. But yeah, I've kept the bullet holes and for posterity. So yeah, I got a lot of the work done out there in Rawalpindi, and met some great people that helped me do that, and it was like it helped me meet a lot of the community out there as well, which was all great. I used to drive it around a little bit as well around Islamabad, so in that area before shipping it back to the UK. So so around that time as well, my stepmom got ill with pancreatic cancer, and I don't know. I think it's probably maybe it's the military side of me, but I just went into
this. Is going to live on YouTube, so we do have to speak in code with certain things you're about to say from what you've discovered, because we can't even say a word. We can't even say sounds like key something lation together, or people are getting their videos pulled or channels. So I mean, this is the extreme tech censorship. So I'm just going to jump in on that part, because
definitely. I'll be careful. This is going through my head as well last night. I was like, I shouldn't say certain things about that.
Isn't that, and that's just an example of the awakening for other people here, right? I mean, you are 3 decades of an elite special operations warrior, and after serving in the military, 3 decades pretty much rounds it out here, just over 3 decades now. As I look at my years, you were in at 89, out at 2005, the military, you've continued to serve in various capacities, which we won't mention here at this point in time at your request. And folks, like, fuck, how people can't wake up to that, right? All right, back to your second awakening moment. Your first, and I just wanted to clarify that because you were touching on that, Mark, and it's up to you how deep you want to go on that. Your first was when you were serving in SRR. You got to see more information. You got to see, I would imagine, what you were going toward was a geopolitical stories in the back end, and seeing how that interfaced, and maybe not, you had more information to be more discerning and to question that. Imagine that is what you were going toward, not putting words in your mouth. It's up to you to validate and clarify. And then obviously pancreatic cancer with your stepmom. If you don't mind, I'd just like to show the picture for everybody. So this is Mark's mom and dad. Obviously you heard him earlier story. They were separated and divorced in his earlier years, but here's his dad in uniform, Sergeant. So Tony, thank you, and Mom, still, if she's watching, thank you as well for bringing this lovely soul to the planet, and your spiritual side, as I hear, Mom, which Mark will likely touch on here shortly. Okay, so your stepmom, pancreatic cancer, second awakening moment for you. Back to you, sir.
So it really was. So I obviously get the news that she has pancreatic cancer. It's one of the worst ones to get. It's usually it's inoperable because of the location. Right next to the heart and stuff.
Right.
So I was hit sideways with that news, and so was my dad, obviously, and it was I just went into this like, okay, here's the threat. I need to fix the threat. I need to, how do I get around this? So I just go into this like real
direct action mode.
Right. Yeah. It's like real research. I just research mode. I'm like, okay, I need to, are there any special medical treatments that can be done? Are there any clinics that are specialists? So I ended up, really starting to go down the history of big pharma and stuff. And I started realizing a few things about all that. So it was, I guess that was really quite shocking that it just seemed to me that there isn't just one cure. There are several, and it is. I think this has all been suppressed from us. And like, why is that? You know, why? Oh,
I'm gonna say I'm gonna reframe that word.
Yeah.
With ways to help.
Ways to help.
Ways to help.
Very correct.
That we're not being informed of, which may have existed more than a century ago.
Right.
And also been discovered within the century. Completely.
Ways that can help. And they seem pretty good. They seem pretty like they have good results. So I started looking at all that. There's a great resource called The Truth About Cancer by Ty Bollinger and I think it's Charlene Bollinger. They have some great resources on their website, and I was looking at their stuff at the time. So you just start realizing, okay, the natural treatments are very they're very good at what they do to help shrink tumors. And
can't go too far here. I think we might be pushing the envelope, and then
okay,
and then that sucks, by the way.
Yeah,
folks. Like this again is another awakening moment right here.
Yeah,
because we've got I've already got strikes on our YouTube. Ridiculous. And some people's pulled down last week without any strike or warning. So but I think everybody's getting what we're telegraphing and putting out there, right?
So I tried to, and no side effects with this because it's natural. So I was just trying to convey this to my dad, my stepmom at the time, and you know, and she was an ex-nurse and a very senior nurse as well. So I guess she she wanted to hear the information, absolutely, but I guess she was very used to hearing what the consultants and doctors would say as well. And I was just trying to say, look, there might be another way we can do this. However, so she did a couple of the things, but not really consistently, I guess, you know. So and these are things like, you know, stop, you know, give up sugar, apricot kernels, you know, that type of thing. And I've even seen recently, like the horse paste stuff might have an effect, and CBD stuff. This all can help. And but yeah, unfortunately, she passed. She held on for just over a year, and then she passed with that. So that was the sort of second, I guess, big wake up moment, realizing there's something else going on, and why is this going on? Why are these natural things being suppressed? And I guess it's money. You know, they can't make money so much from the natural stuff. So yeah, I and then around the same or similar time period, I meet Pam, my wife, and we're going out, and things are going great. I was going backwards and forwards from Pakistan at the time, and but thankfully she was very good with that situation.
That's a real long distance relationship, you know.
It was.
Wow.
It was. Yeah. So and then also during that time, I meet my now brother-in-law, which is Jimmy Valley, who you had on the show last week. I think, was it last week or the week before? So
I think our video went 4 days ago, I believe, posted. Yeah, so just a few days ago from the posting. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So I you know starts getting to know Jimmy, and I have a real strong connection with Jimmy. It's like, so we think a similar way in a lot of areas. As I do with you, I think, Brad, as well. It's like this all seems to be very coincidental, if that's the word, but everyone seems to be sort of drawing together. Yeah. So he's also into motorbikes. So we ended up going doing the Pacific Coast Highway on some couple of Harleys at the time, and we have we got the helmet comms going. So we're just constantly talking on that trip, doing the PCH one.
Beautiful, great
trip. And this is all leading up to me getting married as well. So me and Pam got married in Napa. So we're sort of riding towards that area.
Yeah,
we're just talking constantly along the route. So during that time, Jimmy was reading this book called The Secret History of the World, and it's a pretty deep book, so I hadn't read it at the time, but we were talking about the stuff that was in that, and I ended up reading that from that bike trip. I think it was about a year later, and I was away somewhere else.
Right.
Ended up reading it, and I was like, okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here of what's going on, and there's definitely something going on that we're not being told. This is all being kept from us. So I guess that was another wake up moment during that time. And then,
do you care to clarify on anything you learned from that now, as we had some clarification around your stepmother?
Yeah, I mean, well, that, and having a look at the whole big pharma industry, really, it was, this is leading back to sort of the Rockefeller.
Hey everybody, it's Brad here. Our show will continue in a moment, real quick. If it resonates with you, drop a like, follow us, and subscribe to the show. Hear from cutting edge guests who are experts in their field, have a lot of laughs, and discover some powerful tips on how you can thrive through 2025 in this amazing golden era of humanity. So give us a like, drop a comment, follow us right now as we fight back on the war being waged on humanity right now. And by the way, if you feel so inclined, please do share this with 9 friends, family, and colleagues as well. I'm deeply honored you're listening to this. Thank you for doing so right now. For those many of you who have taken that step. And here we go, back to our show. There's that foundation that owns,
that foundation
is well known for a certain building down in New York City where they have Saturday Night Live go out of, and it's called the Center. Yeah,
correct.
Gotcha. Some crazy ways to get around it, but there we go. Okay, speaking to a special operator and James Bond and a gray man of our time, real life, right here. You teach me. I'm Grasshopper. You are the Grandmaster, son. I'm just Grasshopper.
Too kind, Brad.
Well, it's a fact. So you just start realizing that there is something going on where, they shut down the natural healing schools and natural hospitals in favor of the pharmaceutical industry, and that all went into place. So and then part of that, doctors don't get taught any of the natural side of things. So unless they have an interest in that, they only prescribe what they get put in front of their faces, I guess, what the reps, the narrative and the system and the institution, of everything, whether it's finance, institutions, and schooling and education. And this is the branch of that. Yeah.
So I'll fast.
So now you've had 3 mass awakening moments. You've had a geopolitical government, then you've had a direct, intimate with your family, your stepmother, your father's next wife, and who is like a mother to you as well, as you shared with me yesterday. Very deep relationship. And now you've read this. So 3 mass awakening moments.
Right.
That things are not exactly as they've always appeared to be the way we're shown.
Right, exactly that.
Interesting.
Exactly that.
Okay.
This one absolutely starting to realize now at this point. So then we sort of get into the 2020 time. I'm away again, you know, somewhere. This is like Middle East again. And you know, the C vid happens.
Right. Yeah.
That all is occurring. And I ended up flying back through Dubai, and it was one of the last flights going back. Everywhere was basically starting to lock down. The whole Dubai airport was empty. You know, there's probably about 50 people in the whole airport. We managed to get back, and gets back to the UK. UK's all sort of locked down as well.
Okay.
And that was the way it went for. It was, I think it was a couple of months at the time, you know, and so all of a sudden, then I had a load of spare time. And I'm that way inclined. I just like researching, and I like something's driving me to get to the truth of stuff, and I like to validate anything as well. And so at that same time, Jimmy had sent me a few, you know, videos, and you need to have a look at this and check this out. One of them was like the fall of the cabal, you know, and I started watching that with Janet Usabad, and I was like, okay, I was pretty blown away. I was like, but is this true? So I then let's validate this. Let's validate this. Let's check this out. And I just go down these rabbit holes of like, okay, is anything? And you end up basically proving it to yourself that it's there's a lot of accuracy in that. So which is even more powerful, because you've got to that conclusion yourself, you know. DYOR, do your own research, and you know, never take anything at face value either. You've absolutely got to validate. That's just the way I've always been. That must be the background, I guess.
So, Mark, you arrived at this conclusion for yourself by attempting to disprove that film. Is that what you're telling us? Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful.
In several areas, and yeah. So this is 2020. That was the next big wake up, you know. And really, ever since that time, I've been just. You said it yesterday. You were like a rabid dog with meat put in front of it. You know, the thirst for knowledge just really took over from that. And I've. It's like a spider's web, you know. Once you start going down that, you just it leads you to multiple other things, and this is what's been happening now for a few years, basically. And it's led me down a very spiritual path as well. It's led me to reading the Bible. So all of these things have sort of carried on from this, and I've got an interest now in, as we were saying yesterday, in the Akashic records, and there's also been a very powerful coincidence that's happened to me in the past with this led to my interest in previous lives. You know, I want to find out a lot more about any knowledge on previous lives, any previous memories. And I think there's going to be something there. Yeah.
Well, you inserted in 73 when SRR, as 14th Intel Company, was started. I'm talking about insert your soul.
Right.
And maybe we'll find some pretty wild stuff. If you don't mind, I'd like to actually jump to a few photos you shared with us, and you just give us a little bit of the backstory for it, and jump into a funny meme. Here, let's go to a funny meme. What do we say? Let's break it up with a funny meme and get your input on it. And it also has a little bit to do with one of the issues that gone on here today. And speaking of an issue, I find it interesting that at 16, you went into the Junior Leader Rangers, right?
Junior Leaders Regiment.
Junior Leaders Regiment. Thank you. I apologize. And Junior Leaders Regiment. But yet now they're forcing 12-year-olds in the States, to get a gender reassignment surgery. But you can't, buy a beer. You can't sign up to throw grenades, but you could do that. It's just wild. All right. So as a firearms expert, it was one of the many things you're an expert, top world expert on. Can you see this meme from The Simpsons?
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have your grandfathers and you have that amazing lineage on your patriot side for both sides, mom and dad too.
Yeah.
And for those listening on the podcast, the meme is Lisa Simpson standing in front of people on stage, and behind her it says, "Your grandfather didn't sleep in a foxhole in a faraway land while clutching a picture of your grandmother, so you would surrender your guns." Funny, right. But is it not so funny now? I'm interested in your take as with your background, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, well, as we know, the Second Amendment, it's not for hunting. This is not the reason for the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is there for to prevent government overreach. Really, right. That's why it was inserted. And if you look in history at some of the countries where they took the people's guns away from them, then there's a big history there of a lot of people dying shortly afterwards.
Yeah.
So no, that view is not necessarily what's the word? In the UK, people don't see it that way. I can understand that as well.
It's part of our upbringing in Canada too. I mean, I didn't have any private firearms in the very few years that I was in the reserves and came out and declined the reg force because I knew I couldn't get to the JTF option with my vision. Right. But I'm on a different side now because of that conditioning. Oh, we're safe enough. You don't need it. Right. So under that Crown institution and system, and they did a good job on me too as a result of that, believing that at that time.
Right. Yeah.
That makes sense. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely not some gun nut either. I've seen what guns can do at first hand, and in the wrong hands, obviously it's horrendous,
Right.
Yeah. You got to see both sides of the story, I think, to
100%
draw your own conclusion. But
that we won't go fully into the political issue here, but definitely with the nature of the world at this moment, with what is being waged on us. You sent us this cool little photograph here this morning. Tell us a little bit about this. Who's this?
That's Pam, my wife. So yeah, this was so this was basically the first trip that we took in the van after I got her back from
wild.
Pakistan.
Yeah.
And she went through the van's called Florence, by the way.
Oh, excellent. Nice. Firenze in Italiano.
Right.
Molto bene.
So she went through the Suez Canal on the way back to the UK, and this was the very first trip we had. Didn't even have curtains in the van at that time, so which impressed Pam no end, So, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, what a great round way too in that storyline, from picking up that van in Peshawar and shipping it to the UK, but also getting it worked on there, and then you guys actually go for a nice little road trip in it. That's pretty rad.
Right.
That's very neat. 2 or 3 more here, and then we'll get back to your story. Look at this guy. Holy smokes.
Yes.
17 years old. You're in the back
Yep.
row, is that right?
That's me. Yeah, where the cursor is. Yeah, that was back in the day.
Yeah.
That was yeah, juniors. That was the basic training, army basic training.
Very cool. You know, interesting. If you said the acronym JLR, Junior Leader Regiment, it comes up to jailer. How, you know, said it 10 times fast. Isn't that weird? Right.
Right.
It's just how my brain works. Some oddities, but we'll blame that on TVIs from being a kid and flipping around. We united as part of our story. It was amazing. I was at summer Bible camp. This book came out, and you mentioned that your father, was it, that gave you?
Yeah,
Chris
my
Ryan
dad basically. Yeah, my dad he'd read it first, and he's like, "There you go. You need to read this."
Right.
So I read that. It must have been shortly after the first Iraq war. That must have came out around, I don't know, 92, maybe 93.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
94 time.
Yeah, it was 93, 94 timeframe for me. Yeah. So and it said at that point in time, this 8-man team in the SAS was the most decorated since the Boer War. That's just wild.
Yep. It's if anyone hasn't read the book, I mean, it's a great book. You know, it documents things really well. Good. It's a good read.
Yeah. Pretty powerful.
Enjoyed it.
Very powerful.
There was another book by Chris Ryan called Immediate Action, and he actually goes through some of the Northern Ireland side that
very cool.
I ended up basically doing the same stuff that's in that book.
Wow, that the same stuff just a few years later then? Or
yeah, I wasn't there at the same time as Chris, but it was not long afterwards.
Yeah.
But same location.
Yeah, pretty wild. I'm going to just show 2 more pictures here and we'll continue. Libya. This is actually quite beautiful for anybody who's not been to Libya. When was this taken? And I won't ask what you were doing here.
I think that was about 2016, 2017 time. Yeah. This is a place called Leptis Magna. It's an old, it's a World Heritage UNESCO site.
Wow.
And it's completely empty. Nobody. I mean, it was there was a lot of turmoil in Libya at the time, and I was a overseas security advisor sort of at the time, and I ended up being lucky enough to go there and see the place.
That's wild.
And it was also great to see like Libya and what was going on there. Also another little wake up.
What was going on there, if you don't mind? Yes, as you go into that awakening moment. And
yeah, so I was seeing queues of people outside all of the banks. There wasn't any real fiat currency there going around, and I knew someone at the time that he was instrumental. He was on the board that was instrumental in getting the currency back into the country from one of the companies that print it in the UK. So they don't just print the UK money, paper money, but they also print several other countries' paper money. So he was instrumental in getting.
If you don't mind, this is also new for me too. So the British pound was being printed by a private company that also printed currency for other countries.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you. Yep. So and they also deal with passports as well. I won't say the company name, obviously, but they deal with multiple countries, and they do all that.
Interesting.
And so I know the guy he was in charge of getting the money back into Libya after Gaddafi had been deposed. However you word it. So I was seeing the fallout from all that. There was a big battleship that was on its side in the bay, in the harbor in Tripoli. It was all still very much just right after the war and stuff. It was still pretty volatile. You could see the damage with the buildings and stuff. So I started asking around, what had been going on, and it really the local people, they liked Gaddafi. He was sounded like he was very good for the country, and he was.
There's a video of him at the UN years ago announcing he was going to do a gold-backed currency, and there are many people that believe that that was a precedent for what happened there, because he was aligning many of those countries in that region to have their own gold-backed currency, much like we're seeing now with the BRICS. Gold-backed, Russia, China, India, and many others have chosen that since they unplugged Russia from SWIFT on March 22nd of this year. Is that what you were hearing there too?
Absolutely correct. Yeah. If you were looking at it from a slightly different angle, and the people in Libya were, they were being treated well. They were very well. It was a very wealthy country as well, with gold and oil.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounded to me like Gaddafi was treating the people very well. He'd give families money or gold if they had children and things like that. And he was, I think, from what I could see, he was well thought of. But this didn't tally with what we were being shown in the media.
Correct.
At the time. So we were being shown a different picture, and
right.
Again, it was just like, okay, these things aren't quite. Why is this? Why are these things not tying up? And again, I've done a bit more research, and I think it was possibly to do with that whole gold-backed currency. And there's evidence out there that Libya might have been the forerunner for the rest of Africa in doing that. So if you were benefiting from another system, like maybe you would want to stop that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair.
So that's really what I was seeing, and the terrorism seemed to appear from nowhere in the country there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a lot of things happening. This is very complicated as well, but yeah, there's certainly there was other things going on.
Fair. Yep. And in later parts, you've always said that you come back and we've got a lot more to uncover and unpack, especially with this particular research that you're doing right now, that I absolutely we cannot even say that one word of it on here, or we lose the channel crazy. But it'll come around. I know it'll happen, and it'll come to light. So thank you for that, for sharing that. Hey, Mr. Clymer, you've got, by the way, you've got an Indiana Jones picture. I love it. This is going to be on our thumbnail for the video too. We've seen this in Indiana Jones, right? And Sean Connery and whatnot. So tell us what you were doing here, aside from, looking like the great, handsome operator that you are. This is such a beautiful shot.
Brad. So I won't go into detail about some of the other stuff, but I ended up going, overseas security advisor sort of type stuff. But I ended up spending a little bit of time in Jordan, and obviously when you're there, I'm just like, I've got to get to Petra. So I was a little sojourn to Petra, and it was the whole area is fascinating. And again, there's a lot of history there that maybe we're not being completely told. There's a lot, and this is what I found as well. There's a lot of history that seems to be inaccurate, let's say, and it only takes two generations before you can change history, right? Before people start forgetting about what's gone on in the past. And
interesting.
so, but yeah, it was a fascinating place. Petra is a fascinating place.
It is fascinating. I haven't been there to this region. I've always wanted to go, Mark, and I do look forward to going in this lifetime. Hey everybody, it's Brad here. Our show will continue in a moment real quick. If it resonates with you, drop a like, follow us, and subscribe to the show. Hear from cutting edge guests who are experts in their field, have a lot of laughs, and discover some powerful tips on how you can thrive through 2025 in this amazing golden era of humanity. So give us a like, drop a comment, follow us right now as we fight back on the war being waged on humanity right now. And by the way, if you feel so inclined, please do share this with 9 friends, family, and colleagues as well. I'm deeply honored you're listening to this. Thank you for doing so right now. For those many of you who have taken that step. And here we go, back to our show. In this lifetime, the fact that entire cities are chiseled into mountains, and it's not just there, it's also around the world. And I've shared that on a previous show. Costa Rica, massive amount of pyramids, you know.
Yeah.
And there was a gas station. I was filling up my dirt bike, the picture I sent you yesterday, the dirt bike with the surfboard rack. And, you know, just a couple 400 meters away, they're cutting away the triple canopy jungle to expose yet another pyramid. How far back does it go in Petra? And I'll bring that picture back up here, that they've chiseled into the side of this mountain.
I don't want to be inaccurate here. I'm not
Sure,
not entirely sure of the dates.
I haven't looked at it.
I'm not entirely sure of the dates. I think just over 1,000 years. I think it's about that sort of time period.
So
again, if that's an accurate time frame.
Sure. Quite wild. All right, you're just appeasing the nerd in me. So thank you for entertaining that.
I'm the same way.
I appreciate it. I'd like to touch on the spirituality side. You mentioned that your mom, who we already saw in an earlier picture at the wedding with your father in uniform, had been warning you not to go on this particular trip. A little bit of ice climbing in the French Alps and a little bit of regular old mountain climbing. And
it was a mixed climbing trip. And my mom is she's very spiritual, and she's very into meditation and very open to all of that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I wasn't so much, you know. Back in this time I wasn't really that interested, but Mum has got me interested in meditation since, and really interested. So back in that time, I went on that trip, and it was French Alps, as you say, and Mum had been saying, she says, I'm getting a real bad feeling about this trip.
Right.
And she says, and I was like, Mom, don't worry, you know, like there's going to be no problem. I'm fine. You know, this is all good. Mm-hmm. She's like, well, she carried out this ceremony called a puja ceremony. And then she came back from that, and she says, I'm still worried, but I think you're going to be okay. And but I'm picking up on something you're going to have a problem with your hands. Wow. And I was like, okay. I was like, you know, still thinking, okay, Mom, you know, I'll be fine.
Has she ever been like that whenever you deployed, whether it was the regular army, or so you've literally went roughly the better part of 3 decades of your life at a tier 1 level, in and out, during and then after the military, and this is really when she's actually coming to you and saying, I'm worried about you on this trip. That's really interesting, the intuition she has. Wow. She'd never mentioned something like this before.
Wow. Okay. So I end up going on this trip, and day one, we're snowshoeing up this side of this mountain. Classic conditions for 30-35 degree angle, sort of in the sun and everything.
Wow.
Off-piste skiers at the top, you know, and we'd gone up on this like cable car, and then we're walking up, and then we had a Francois, a French guide, And all of a sudden he's like, move, 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 avalanche, avalanche. And we were like,
Boy.
shit, you know, and
Right.
we just saw this like wall of snow from the top starting to come down. And I was like, shit. So I then, we all just legged it as quick as we could with the snowshoes on as well. So we're like floundering and trying to get to this outcrop of rocks, you know, to sort of shelter in the lee of the rock.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up getting there, and this thing just petered out. It was probably a couple of 100 meters above us, you know, but we were like, you know, it was close enough, close enough to worry. And so that was day one, and then then we're going through. I mean, it was a great trip though, and we did some.
Did the avalanche go over you? You basically blew past the avalanche story that you guys did. Did it go over you, or was it to the side?
It stopped. It stopped about 200 meters before it got to us. Yeah, so it just petered out above us, you know, and we were like, I mean, Kev, the guy I was
check
with,
your shorts type of thing.
It was just like gray. Yeah. It's just like, you know, we were all shaken up.
Wow.
And I think we would have made it. I think we would have been okay in the little outcrop as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, we didn't need it. So
wow.
Then we were doing, you know, we were doing some classic routes, Cosmic Arret, and there's a few good routes that we were doing. Ice climbing as well, and you got to about, I think it was day 5, you know, and you Alpine. Are you a climber, Brad?
I'm not.
Okay, so Alpine movement is you travel very light, so you can move quickly, and you're roped up to the other guys.
Okay.
So if you fall down a crevasse, basically the guy that's still on the surface, he just digs the ice axes in and holds your. Otherwise, you're all going in, you know. So it's the way. This is the way you got to move, and it's the quickest way to move. So we were moving in the Alpine way, but minimal kit. And we'd gone up to one of the you call them chalets, which is a few thousand feet above ground. Slept the night there, and then we had a 4 o'clock in the morning start to then go up, head torches, and we're going up to get to the Bergschrund, which is like before the mountain. We're moving up there, and you know, this is like ice. We're going up on, and it was probably about -10. You know, it was like real cold.
Fun times, yeah.
Fun times. I volunteered for it. So we get to the bottom of the mountain, and then this is like daybreak, and then we starts moving up the mountain. And there's a part we're heading to the basically the lost for words now, the you know, the peak, what's the word? Anyway, we're heading for the top.
Copy.
And on the way there, we had to basically come down, which was an abseil. We had to abseil down.
Right.
And Francois, he's putting the roping together, and everyone's getting kitted out for that, you know. He's like, who wants to go first? I was like, I'll go first, you know. So I'm like looking down, and it's like it's over 1,000-foot drop, and I'm aiming for this like tiny little ledge.
Wow.
Which was sort of where I was
like a worm at the bottom of a fishing line. That's the image I get right now, just hanging there.
Right.
Dangling.
So I was like going down for this point.
Wow.
And then we would like traverse around and head back up again. So
got it.
I'm starting to abseil down, and when you're climbing and you're abseiling, it's not like the movies. You're just going super slow. You don't want to shake anything, so I'm just going down super slow. All of a sudden, my climbing partner Kev, he's like, he pops his head over. He's like, Mark, don't move. I was like, okay. So I stop, and then Francois is like, he's like, don't move, don't do anything. I was like, okay. So I'm like, he's like, the rock is moving. So I'm basically tied onto this boulder,
Right.
top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And this whole boulder is starting to move, it's starting to come over.
Holy frig. What?
Yeah. So I was like, shit. So and I'm in this like outcrop. I've got no real belt kit apart from like a few little cams on me. Nothing that's going to fit in these. So all I could do was like fist jam this crack.
Yeah.
So I fist jam this thing, and I'm like, well,
Yeah,
I'm not going to be able to hold this. Well, the boulder's going to come down. That's going to me. And I was just like, I'm screwed. I'm like, I'm absolutely screwed. So I was having a little freak out. I was like, fuck, what am I going to do here?
Right.
Then Kev pops over again. He's like, okay, he says, you're good. Just go down real slow. I was like, okay. So I'm like going down, gets to this ledge, and they then follow, they come down, and I was like, and then we're all still moving. It was a tiny little ledge. We're still moving. And we get to this, like a bit more of a level. I'm like, what happened? what was going on there?
Right.
And Kev was just like, he says, the whole boulder started to go. He says, so we literally jumped on the boulder to stop it going. And then he says, and then Francois basically tied off on another rock, and then and we took it from there. So I was like, okay, all right. And then got to the top, came back down.
To be thinking you've gotten through all of this in your life and all these combat situations. Wow.
Right.
To be hanging off.
To get taken out by the big
freaking boulder. Yeah.
So then I get back, we get back down, and it was a long day, and I was just like, I can't feel my fingertips. They are. So I had frost nip from that little experience, the -10, and
sure.
And then it just came back to me. My mom talking about there's going to be a problem with your hands. So
right.
I didn't get the feeling back in my fingertips until about 3-4 months later.
Wild, mate. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, good on you, Mom. And so you're going to listen to Mom next time she has an intuition about something, maybe.
Yeah. I took it a lot more seriously after that.
Yeah. Awesome. One last photo here, and then I've got another question for you. Where's this photo here with the Toyota?
Yeah, so that's on top of a place called TV Hill in Kabul.
Okay.
And the Taliban used to it's basically an old Russian built Olympic swimming pool that's now got no water in it, but it's got like there's a big diving board, and it's on top of a hill in the middle of Kabul that looks out over the city. So that was the location for that, and the Taliban used to do they used to kill people on top of the diving board, and then push them off into the bottom. So that was the history of that location. But it's a good location to see the city as well.
Yeah. Good.
And the whole Russian history there as well is huge.
Right.
As you know, with Afghanistan. Now
China's there, with a couple $100 billion in military equipment, both from US and other forces as well. Let me ask you, as we're about to wrap up here, what creed, what ethos do you personally live by, Mark? I'm not talking about the regiment side, which is also wonderful at SRR. And what do you live by as an ethos daily? If you were to put it on your tombstone, and in part as well to the audience, of ambition that could fuel people to move forward despite the times and the hardships they might be having, whether it could be health with family members, whether it could be financial and economic. Been there, done that. You're still doing it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I sort of touched on it earlier in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I've learned is the what you think are your limits are not actually, you're nowhere near your limits.
Mm-hmm.
When you think you are absolutely on your last legs, you're not. You find the reserves to go way past that, and this isn't just physical, it's mental as well. You know, you will learn a lot about yourself if you just push past that perceived limit, and because that's it. It's all perception, and it's really a mental game. I think I'm a big believer in manifestation as well. I think thoughts become things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think you can do it, you can. You know, it really is that. You will become whatever you want to become. So and then the way you asked about the way I like to live my life, we're both on this wavelength. I think you are also. It's like it's in your title, the sovereign title is in there. I've also been looking a lot at that, and the sovereign way of life, and common law and law of mankind, and that your God-given rights, and so it is like, do no harm. You know, don't cause any harm. Don't harm thy neighbor. Don't do anything to others that you wouldn't want to be done to you. You know, I do believe there is I've read Law of One as well, and I do believe in universal law and karmic law as well. I really do believe that, and that is a thing. You know, yeah, if you do bad things, then that is gonna come back to you.
Right. Yeah. Like those forces of energy, you know, magnets putting it out and either attracting it back, or you turn and you can repel it to the side as well. Well, thank you, sir. Before we've got, you know, in the next few weeks, we'll have you back on the show at your convenience, of course. What would you impart on the world if you were to be elected? Obviously, you're not running for anything, but to just say, I'm going to make this happen for the world because of, what would it be and why?
Great question again.
The genie question, in a way.
Right.
You've seen, and I apologize for the interruption. I just wanted to say that, no, I've never asked this of anybody, because you've literally been there, done that, seen that in multiple territories, in multiple generations of humanity thus far over the decades. And so, you know, the wisdom that you impart by answering this question, I feel thus far is the greatest learning experience that we can have on this show with a guest from a global perspective, if that makes sense to you, Mark. So that's why I'm like, okay, I've got the genie in the bottle type of a question here for somebody who's been through many different things and many different environments. So thank you for hearing that aspect out for me. So I think it'll mean a lot to people listening and watching.
Thanks, Brad. No, it is a great question. This will probably lead into another interview. I think it is so big, but I would say the one thing I would change for the greater good is the financial system. The whole financial system has been set up to serve the 0.0001% of the world. It's not. It doesn't serve the people.
Right.
On purpose. This is specifically done that way. So I would say that, and I do think we're making good progress in changing that. I really do. I really do. And this could be soon as well. I think we're going to another system. I've seen how it is in Africa, in multiple countries in Africa. They are massively wealthy in resources, yet the people are they're dirt poor. The people are dirt poor because of corruption, because of the way the financial system is set against them.
Right.
And there are things that we've been doing here as well that I'm happy to go into in more detail in future, but there are ways that we can change that. And if you look to Qatar, they've already done this. They've collateralized the wealth of oil and gas that they had in the ground there, and then they turned the country's prospects around by doing that.
Yeah.
But if you apply that same principle to some of the countries in Africa, you can do the same thing. It would flip the economies.
Mark, I look at that as go ahead, excuse me.
It would flip the economies on their head. You know, if you look at Sierra Leone as an example, it's a small country. I think there's about 7 million people there. You know, if you look at the square footage in that country, it's one of the wealthiest countries. It should be one of the wealthiest countries on the planet. Right. And it's not. And in that change of the financial system, it would be really, there is a way to get rid of debt. And and if you look down that side of things, then you're sort of getting close to the answer of where we need to be, I think.
Definitely. Yes. The value proposition for human empowerment, which is one of the things that Valhalla Capital is bringing forth, from that financial sovereignty, creates so much freedom for everybody. And for those people who don't speak French, the word mortgage can be broken down to death pledge.
Yep.
Which is a death pledge. And you look back from the system of the crown, the monarchy, and this is both in France all that time, in Dutch all that time, and the British monarchy as well. Debtor's prison. If you don't pay your taxes, you go to debtor's prison, right? You know, to be in debt is also a form of a death pledge, but a mortgage literally translates to death pledge. And all these things that the systems, the Babylonian fiat financial system that's been imposed on us is absolutely breaking down. I think that's a wonderful note to leave it on, Mark, is the ability to change the financial system. And the fact that you guys are actually helping lead that in many areas from an empowerment, a human sovereign cellular empowerment for those communities there. And what a bridge too, you know, to bring the best and the brightest mind share, like you guys have at Valhalla Capital, and with the partnerships and the folks there, to these other regions that are resource rich, finance poor thus far. And it's wonderful, mate. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, tier 1 operator, elite, brilliant, heart-based, heart-centered man, hero for humanity. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate you being here and taking the valuable, critical time that you have to impart your knowledge with us and share your story. I look forward to having you come back on this show.
Brad, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Pam, thanks for allowing us to borrow him. Same thing with Jimmy. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm Brad Wozni. Please do subscribe to this show. Definitely subscribe to the Rumble and the BitChute channel, because, you know, who knows what could happen on YouTube as well too. The links are in this description, as well as Valhill Capital. And then please let us know any questions you may have for Mark on future shows coming back. We can certainly collect them in the comments section and pull that together for the next show that we have. In the meantime, many blessings to all of you in the world. Please conduct your life with love, levity, and liberty, because that's what gives you the greatest sovereign freedom for your soul. And all the best to you and your family. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks for joining us on the program, ladies and gentlemen. Please like, follow, subscribe, share this with 9 friends and family. And of course, if you enjoy our blinged Buddha firing red pills from his 9mm, let us know.